Welcome back to the deep dive. So you sent us a pretty big stack of sources this time. We've got articles, technical guides, even some notes from mechanics, all focused on one thing.
Yep, the one system pretty much every driver ignores until it's too late. Vehicle suspension.
It's sort of the hidden engine of control, isn't it?
That's a great way to put it. And our mission today is pretty straightforward. We want to give you a shortcut to understanding the whole system.
From how it affects your safety features all the way down to a couple of simple tests you can do right in your driveway.
Exactly.
It's funny, when we think about performance or safety, our minds immediately go to the engine or, the brakes.
Mhm.
But the suspension is this unsung hero working constantly underneath you. It's absolutely vital for safety, for comfort, and I think this is the key point for keeping your tires firmly glued to the road.
That is the only thing connecting you to the planet, right? And we really have to start there. The system's number one job isn't actually comfort.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, its job is to maximize that tire contact. And to do that, it has to control the vehicle's weight as it shifts around. The tech specs talk about managing movement across 3 axes.
Okay, let's unpack this. 3 axes, let's make that tangible. What does that first one, longitudinal control, feel like when you're driving?
Longitudinal is your forward and backward movement. So think about braking hard. The nose of the car dives forward, right?
Yeah, you feel that lurch.
That's weight shifting longitudinally.
Yeah.
Same thing when you accelerate hard. The rear of the car squats down. That's the suspension managing that same axis.
Got it. Okay, so what about lateral?
Lateral is side to side. This is all about what we call body roll. When you take a corner, the whole car wants to tilt or, roll to the outside of that turn.
Right.
The suspension is fighting that, managing the weight transfer across the width of the car.
And the last one, vertical, that seems like the most obvious one.
It is. Vertical is just the up and down movement. We call it body bounce. That's the classic job, right?
Yeah.
Soaking up bumps and potholes to keep the ride smooth, but also to keep those tires on the ground.
So when all 3 of those are under control, you've got a car that's safe, predictable, and responsive.
Exactly.
Which brings us right to the central danger that all of our source materials highlighted. If the suspension is so critical for stability, what happens when it starts to fail?
The real problem isn't that it's going to, catastrophically break all at once. It's that the degradation it's incredibly gradual.
So you, the driver, you just kind of get used to it.
You get used to it. You slowly adapt to a rougher ride, a bit more lean in the corners, maybe a little more nosedive when you brake. You normalize bad performance.
And by the time you actually notice something's wrong, it's already a serious problem.
It's already severe, yeah.
And that normalization, that's what introduces the real risk. So let's talk about the immediate safety threat. When you lose that control, what happens?
The first, and honestly the most critical consequence, is a drastic increase in your braking distance.
Really? How so?
Well, if your shocks are worn out, the wheel isn't gripping the road smoothly. It's actually bouncing. Tiny little bounces, but bounces nonetheless.
And if the tire's not in firm contact with the ground?
You can't stop. It's that simple. That alone is a massive, massive reduction in safety.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, according to the sources. The computer systems that are designed to save us, ABS, the anti-lock braking system, and ESP, the electronic stability program, bad suspension can basically shut them down.
It can render them ineffective, absolutely. Think of those systems as these hypersensitive computers. They're trying to read the traction of your tires hundreds of times a second.
Okay.
They work by modulating the brakes or cutting engine power based on the assumption of stable, predictable tire grip. But if your wheel is bouncing violently off the road...
The computer's just getting garbage data.
Exactly. It's getting chaotic, intermittent data. Yeah. Imagine trying to scan a barcode on a product that's like skipping across the scanner.
It's never going to read it properly.
It can't process it. So if the ABS computer thinks the wheel locked up for a millisecond because the tire was actually in the air, it immediately releases brake pressure. But the wheel wasn't locked, it was just bouncing.
So it's constantly letting go of the brakes when it should be grabbing them.
Precisely. And that dramatically increases your stopping distance, and it messes with your stability control when you're in a corner. It's a huge deal.
Wow. So ignoring your suspension isn't just about comfort, you're actively stripping your car of its modern safety intelligence.
You are. And beyond braking, you get these other extreme symptoms: excessive body roll, serious nose diving. The car just feels spongy. Unpredictable.
Yeah. So if you have to swerve suddenly,
that warn system will lean heavily, it reduces the contact patch of the tires, and it massively increases the likelihood of a skid or, even worse, a rollover.
Okay. So If the wear is so gradual, we need a way to break that normalization cycle. How does the average driver stop ignoring it? Where do we even start looking?
We can start with some simple visual inspections, and the easiest place to start is actually the tires.
Not even the suspension parts themselves?
Not yet. Look really closely at the tread pattern. If you see uneven wear, especially these weird wavy patterns called cupping or scalloping,
Cupping, okay.
yes, where the tread depth varies a lot in these little patches, that's a textbook sign that your tire is bouncing up and down instead of rolling smoothly.
That's a great visual, a bouncing tire leaving these wavy marks. So after the tires, what's next while the car is just sitting there?
Then you move to the components.
Hmm.
Get down and look for oil leaks on the body of the shock absorber.
Shocks have oil in them.
They're filled with hydraulic fluid. So if you
Mhm.
see any dampness or actual oil streaks, it means the internal seals are blown, the shock is done. Also check the little rubber boot, the dust boot. If that's torn, dirt and grit get in and just destroy the seals. And finally, look at the springs. They hold all the weight.
Right, what am I looking for there?
Check for cracks, severe corrosion, or if they just look loose. In places with road salt, rust can weaken them to the point where they can just snap.
Okay, now for the classic test. The one every mechanic seems to do. The bounce test. How do we do that correctly?
It's simple. You go to each corner of the car, right over the wheel, and you push down hard. Use your body weight. Then release it quickly.
And what should happen?
Should come back up, maybe have one small rebound, and then stop. Instantly. If it keeps oscillating,
Yeah.
bouncing up and down 2, 3, 4 times,
Then the shock is shot.
completely shot. It has no dampening left at all.
That's a really clear, definitive test. Okay, a little more advanced now. The sources mention a shake test, but this one requires lifting the car safely.
Correct. You need a jack, and jack stands for this. Once a wheel is securely in the air, you're checking for excessive play or looseness. And the angle you shake it at is critical here.
What do you mean?
First, grab the tire at the 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock positions, so you're trying to move it side to side.
Like you're steering it.
Exactly. If you feel a clunk or loose play there, you're likely feeling worn tie rods. Those are the parts that connect your steering to the wheel.
Okay, that makes sense. Tie rods for steering, so you check them by moving it like you're steering.
Now, you move your hands, grab the wheel at the 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock positions.
So up and down.
Yep. If you feel that same clunk or looseness shaking it up and down, you're probably dealing with worn ball joints.
And ball joints are what handle the vertical load.
They handle the immense vertical load of the car. And that's why generally a bad ball joint is considered more urgent than a tie rod.
Because it could fail completely.
A failed ball joint can cause the entire suspension on that corner to collapse. It's a truly catastrophic failure.
Wow. Okay. Good to know. Let's move to when you're actually driving. What are the sounds and feelings we should never, ever ignore?
Any unusual noises, your vehicle's talking to you.
Oh.
Listen for clanking, banging, knocking sounds when you go over bumps. That's usually metal-on-metal contact from a worn-out part.
And what about just steering down a straight road?
If you find yourself constantly fighting the wheel, like you have to apply continuous pressure just to keep the car going straight, that's a huge indicator. It means worn components have thrown your alignment way out of spec.
A healthy car should just track straight with almost no effort.
Minimal input, yeah.
Okay, so let's talk causes.
Yeah.
What's actually accelerating this wear? It's not just about how many miles are on the car, right?
Not at all. Driving conditions are number one. If you're constantly on rough, unpaved roads or roads with a lot of potholes, that's immense stress.
And what about speed bumps?
Speed bumps are killers. Hitting them at speed, even if they seem small, creates these massive impact forces that just destroy shocks and struts.
And what about how we use the car itself? Like for work?
Huge factor. If you're regularly towing a heavy trailer or you're always carrying the maximum payload in your truck, you're pushing that suspension to its limit every single day.
So it's going to wear out way faster than just a light commuter car.
Way faster. And then there's the environment. We mentioned it with the springs, but corrosion from road salt is a silent killer for the whole system.
Right. It just eats everything away.
It compromises the metal, creates structural weakness, and just accelerates failure across the board.
Okay. Here's where it gets really interesting, at least from a financial perspective. The damage chain. Why is ignoring a clunk so much more expensive than just fixing it?
Because it's a chain reaction. A bad suspension puts more stress on every system connected to it. Your brakes, for instance, have to work much harder.
So you're burning through pads and rotors faster.
Much faster. But it gets worse. That continuous harsh jarring can literally start to damage the car's core structure.
You mean the frame?
The frame, the chassis, the undercarriage. We've seen it damage exhaust systems. You could be looking at thousands in repair costs, all because you ignored one bad shock.
So what you're saying is that a single, say, $150 failing shock absorber is actually turning my $1,000 set of brand new premium tires into disposable junk.
That is exactly the math you should be doing. Faulty suspension is the #1 cause of that cupping and scalloping we talked about. You are throwing away perfectly good tread life because the tire is being destroyed by bounce.
That's a huge hidden cost.
And it even affects your fuel efficiency. Poor suspension increases vehicle drag, so you're spending more at the pump, too.
Okay, so to get ahead of this, what are the maintenance intervals? What are the quick facts?
The sources are all pretty consistent here. You should get a visual inspection at least once a year, during an oil change or other routine service.
And for people who drive a lot.
If you're putting on, say, 12,000 to 15,000 miles a year or more, you should probably ask for a dedicated suspension check more often than that.
And the components themselves. How long do shocks and struts actually last?
They're designed to be replaced. The general lifespan is somewhere between 50,000 and 100,000 miles, but that's a huge range.
Because it all depends on those factors we just talked about.
Exactly. If you drive aggressively, tow a lot, or you're on rough roads every day, you should be budgeting for replacement closer to that 50,000-mile mark, no question.
All right, let's shift gears and get into the deep mechanics. You mentioned body roll and weight transfer. How does suspension actively control handling?
Well, handling is all about how the car responds to what you tell it to do.
Yeah.
And beyond the springs and shocks, there's a very specialized component that is almost entirely dedicated to fighting that side-to-side body roll.
And that would be the anti-roll bar, which a lot of people call a sway bar.
That's the one. It's a really clever piece of engineering. It's usually just a tube of high-strength steel that connects the suspension on the left side of the car to the suspension on the right side.
So it links them together.
It links them. So when you take a corner, the car wants to lean, right? It compresses the suspension on the outside wheel and lets the inside suspension extend.
Okay, and the bar resists that. How?
When the car leans, it forces the two ends of the sway bar to move in different directions. And that puts a twisting force or torsion on the bar itself.
Ah, so it acts like a spring, but a twisting spring.
Exactly. It's like a giant torsion spring.
Yeah.
It transfers some of that force from the compressed outside wheel back over to the inside wheel. It helps equalize the load, and that dramatically reduces how much the body leans.
Which keeps the tires flatter on the road, giving you more grip.
Better traction, better handling.
That's a great explanation. Okay, let's clarify something else. People use the words shocks and struts interchangeably all the time.
They do, and they're related, but they are structurally very different. A shock absorber is only a damping device. Its only job is to control the bouncing of the spring.
And a strut.
A strut is a structural part of the suspension. It actually integrates the shock absorber function into a load-bearing assembly. It holds the car up.
So here's the quick distinction then. If you remove a shock, the car stays up.
Yep. If you remove a strut, the car falls down.
Got it. Load-bearing versus non-load-bearing. That's invaluable. Okay, last big topic. The fundamental design trade-off that really defines a vehicle's DNA, independent versus dependent systems.
This is all about the vehicle's primary purpose. In an independent suspension system, like a McPherson strut or a multi-link design, each wheel on an axle moves completely on its own.
So if your left wheel hits a pothole,
The right wheel is totally unaffected.
and the benefit there is obvious. A much more comfortable ride, better tire contact on uneven surfaces, more precise handling. It's why you find it on almost all modern cars and SUVs.
Right. Now contrast that with a dependent suspension, which is basically a solid axle, a live axle.
So both wheels are rigidly connected by one big beam.
Exactly. So if your left wheel hits a bunk, the entire axle tilts, and that impact is instantly sent right over to the right wheel.
Which means a rougher ride, less precise handling. But what's the trade-off? Why would anyone want that?
Massive durability. Huge load-bearing capacity. Dependent systems are way simpler, they're more robust, and they're perfect for heavy-duty work.
Like a big pickup truck.
A heavy-duty pickup truck, a serious off-road rock crawler, anything that needs to tow something massive. The pure strength and simplicity of that solid axle is more important than a cushy ride.
This has been an incredibly complete picture. We've covered everything from the hidden safety dangers to the simple driveway tests and even the core design philosophies.
I think the main takeaway, the one thing everyone should remember, is that suspension is the absolute foundation of vehicle control. It is not a luxury feature for comfort.
It's a non-negotiable safety system.
It's what ensures your tires have traction, especially in that split second when you need to slam on the brakes or swerve to avoid something.
So what does this all mean for you?
It means you have to start taking suspension seriously. We've established that driving with worn shocks can increase your stopping distance by dozens of feet at highway speeds.
Dozens of feet. That's the difference between a close call and a serious accident.
It is. And you are, in effect, inadvertently disabling the very computer systems, the ABS, the ESP, that were engineered to save you. So maintaining the system isn't about fixing a squeak. It's about adding those critical feet back into your available reaction time when it matters most.
A perfect summary. So what's the final provocative thought you want to leave everyone with?
Okay, so here it is. Given how interconnected all these vehicle systems are and how dramatically a simple, worn-out part can compromise these advanced safety features, what other hidden, low-cost maintenance item on your car might be silently undermining the high-tech protection that you trust every single day to keep you safe?
Please like, subscribe, and get notified.